Welcome back to another episode of Lock City MMA. Last week we were perfect on our bets, so let's see if we can keep it up for UFC 330 Islam Makhachev versus Iam Machado Garry. Let's get to the breakdowns. This main event is going to be crazy. We have Islam Makhachev versus Iam Machado Garry. Islam is coming in on a 16 fight win streak, and a lot of people consider him the pound for pound number one fighter in the UFC. He is a dominant wrestler who does have some decent striking and is trained by Khabib, so you know that his IQ inside the ring is super high. This guy has just ran through all of his opponents with some really nice knockouts, some good ground and pound finishes, some submissions, and a lot of decisions. He is one of the best fighters in UFC history. Now, he's going up against Iam Machado Garry, who in his own right is a really, really good fighter. Now, Iam Machado Garry doesn't really have a dominant trait in his fight game like Islam does with his wrestling. He's kind of a jack of all trades. He really likes to use his lower leg kicks and his petite kicks to keep the opponents off of him when they're trying to back him up to the cage. But he also has some pretty good jabs and some good boxing combos that he can land and hurt his opponents that you've seen in the past. Now, Ian has lost to a wrestler, Shavkat Rakhmonov, who didn't even take Ian down the whole fight, but he pressed him up against the cage and was just a physical, bigger guy in that fight and racked up 15 minutes of control time, even though he only had 3 takedowns. Ian Machado Garry doesn't have the greatest jiu-jitsu, but he has good enough jiu-jitsu where it becomes a problem to keep him on the ground or to try to get him into a submission, which a lot of opponents try but fail to do. Rachmanov has never been to a decision before fighting Ian Garry, and Ian Garry looked really good in that fight and earned my respect, honestly, because I thought he was just some chump that was kind of a one tool guy with his striking. The way I see this fight working out, though, is I've seen Islam this week and he looks absolutely ripped. He looks big. And they did a face off the other day where they didn't look that much different in height. But Ian Garry will have about a 4-inch reach advantage in this fight. But I don't think it's going to matter. A lot of people can wrestle or say they wrestle, but not everyone is on the level of Islam Makhachev when it comes to his timing, his power, and his just unique ways to get people to the ground. I think that Islam will get Ian Machado Garry to the ground in almost every round that this fight is going on. I think Ian, though, will make it difficult for Islam to do that and might even look pretty decent in the early parts of the rounds. He might be landing some good low kicks, he might land some good jabs, but ultimately, I see Islam getting on top of him and just controlling him. I don't know how much damage he's going to do because Ian Garry is going to be squirming. He's going to be throwing up his own submission attempts, and it's going to keep Islam busy on top. But what I think happens is in that scramble, Islam is going to catch Garry in either an arm or even get to Garry's back. If Islam gets to Garry's back, I see Islam finishing Garry by submission. That's actually going to be my pick for this. My pick for the fight is Islam to win by submission. I don't think it happens to probably the 4th or 5th round where Ian starts getting a little sloppy because he's starting to get tired because he's just been pressured the entire fight. Now, I do think this fight will look close, and I think Islam wins in a decision, but I would not be surprised if maybe some rounds do go to Garry. But for the bet of the fight, I'm going Islam for submission. Lock it in. This co-main event is going to be a battle of two styles that are very similar. We have Mackenzie Dern going against Jillian Robertson. Now, Jillian Robertson is known for being a pretty good wrestler, and she likes to take opponents to the ground in her fight to get the advantage. Now, she does not have the best striking defense, but she's usually so dominant on the ground that it doesn't matter. She's been around the UFC for a while, so she does have some good experience, but not as good experience or talent level, in my opinion, as the current champion, Mackenzie Dern. Now, Mackenzie Dern is probably the best UFC women's fighter on her back. She has some of the best jiu-jitsu in the UFC period, and she's not afraid to use it. She's super dangerous when it comes to that wrestling side of things because she doesn't care if she gets taken down. She's almost just as good on her back as she is on top position. And if she does get on top position, she likes to lay the hammer with some ground and pound and go for those submissions as well. Now, I think the big difference in this fight is going to be the striking. Mackenzie Dern has shown in her last fight that she can go out there and throw hands. Now, she might be a little awkward in the style that she throws it, but sometimes that makes it harder for the opponents to know that's coming and counter and get out of the way. So it can actually allow Mackenzie to land some big shots. And I think the way this fight's going to go, Mackenzie's going to dominate it on the feet. So Jillian's going to have to shoot. And when she shoots, she's just going to fall to the better jiu-jitsu person. Mackenzie is just on a different level, in my opinion, than Jillian when it comes to the submission game. So I don't see being on the ground going good for Jillian either. I think she might end up on top, which could allow for it to look good. But I've seen Mackenzie in previous fights. She throws elbows from the bottom. She's constantly throwing submission attempts. And if she wants to get up, she's going to put her foot in your chest and just kick you off her. And if I was Mackenzie in this fight, I would just try to keep it on the ground or on the feet because I know that I'm going to have a striking advantage and can land some really powerful punches on this Jillian girl. So if you're Mackenzie Dern, you get taken down, you don't give a shit, and if you stay on the feet, you're probably going to dominate. So I just don't see how Mackenzie Dern doesn't win this fight. So I'm going to pick Dern by decision. Lock it in. The next fight I want to talk about is Mansour Abdul Malik versus Dustin Stolfus. Now, Mansour is coming in on the only loss of his UFC career. He is 9-1-1, but this guy is a powerhouse. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage in this fight as well, and he's just going to look like the bigger fighter in the ring. Now, Dustin is more of a veteran, so he does have an experience advantage on him, and he has proven that he does have some decent cardio. So if this fight becomes a dog fight, Dustin does have honestly a good chance to look good. The problem is I don't think this fight's going to be a dog fight. I think it's going to be a bully beatdown. Mansour Abdul Malik is a super athletic, strong, fast fighter. I think he has advantages in Dustin in all those categories, and I just don't see where Dustin's going to have any advantages against Abdul Malik. I think Abdul Malik is going to land some really big strikes on the feet. He's a really wild fighter, and he likes to throw spinning back fists, flying knees up the middle. He gets creative with his head kicks as well. Very fun guy to watch when it's striking. The other side of him, though, he's also willing to bring you down to the ground and just land the biggest ground and pound shots I've ever seen. This guy throws bombs and he hits hard. Between the reach advantage and Dustin just being, in my opinion, just not as good in almost any aspect of the fight, I don't see how Abdul Malik doesn't knock out Dustin. So my official pick for this fight would be Abdul Malik TKO. Lock it in. When you're talking about knockouts, let's get into this next fight. We have Edson Barbosa versus Esteban Ribovic. Now, Edson Barbosa is 40 years old, and he's coming in with 0-3 on his last 3 fights, including a brutal knockout in his last fight against Jalen Turner. Now, Edson has talked about retirement in the past, and I think this fight will be it. His opponent, Esteban Ribovic, is coming in on a 15-3 record with just absolute bombs in his hands. This guy is a superior striker than Edson, and he also has a great head kick knockout of Terrence McKinney on his record as well, who Terrence McKinney is a very good fighter. Esteban is coming up into his prime, and I think they're just sacrificing Edson for some reason in this position. Edson will be dangerous when it comes to the early part of the fight He does have some good power, but he's not a big takedown threat. Edson only has 2 submission wins his entire UFC career, but he does have pretty decent hands while he still has the cardio. Now, if Esteban has been hit in the past and he does have kind of a shaky chin, so I could see Esteban getting hurt maybe early in round 1. But like I said, he's just such a better striker than Edson that as the round progresses and Esteban gets more comfortable, he's going to land not only more shots, but the bigger shots. This is one of those fights where I could see Ribovic knocking out Barbosa in the first round, if not early part of the second round, just because of the speed and power advantage that Esteban Ribovic is going to have. Now, if this fight was 4 or 5 years ago, Edson would put up, I think, a lot better battle. But in this current circumstance, I have to take Ribovic by knockout. Lock it in. This next fight will probably end in a finish. We have Chidi Nkwani versus Joel Alvarez. Now, Shikidi is coming in. He's 37 years old. And the problem is he's 0-2 at 170 pounds. He's fought at 185 pounds for most of his career, but coming down to 170, he's been having some tough weight cuts. I think that will kind of play a factor in this fight. Joel Alvarez, on the other hand, coming up. He's fought at 170 as well for a couple fights, but he used to fight at 155. So when you're moving up in weight, your body can transition a little better. You can put on a little more muscle and still have some of that quickness. Now, Chidi, in my opinion, is a very good Muay Thai striker. He has good kicks. He has really good jabs with good combos in the boxing as well. But his ground game isn't the best. Joel Alvarez is really good kind of everywhere. When it gets up close and personal, Joel loves to drop big elbows and has really good knees in the clinch and when he pushes people up against the cage. But one of his biggest threats isn't his striking, it's his submission threat. When Joel gets these fights to the ground, he's just kind of a submission ace. So for Chidi to win this fight, I think he would have to keep it standing and keep Joel Alvarez from taking him back even to the cage to win this fight, which I don't see happening. I think Joel Alvarez is going to be a little quicker than Chidi. I think he's going to be a little stronger than Chidi. And I think he's going to shitty on Chidi and eventually catch him. I think he hits him hard or gets him down to the ground and just lands some really good ground and pound. Now, submission is liable here as well, especially if he hurts him and Chidi kind of gives up his back. I can see Joel just jumping on that and grabbing the rear naked choke and finishing him. So it's hard for me to predict if it's going to be a KO or submission, but I do see Joel Alvarez, if you want to bet it, to win by finish. I'm officially going to pick Alvarez to win by TKO. Lock that in. We have Rafael Tobias versus Lucas Fernando up next. Now, this should be a pretty interesting fight because both these guys are super new to the UFC, where Tobias is 0-1 in the UFC and Fernando is making his UFC debut. Fernando is coming in on a 4-fight win streak where he looks really good when it comes to striking, but he has had a problem with takedown defense. He has showed improvement over his last couple fights, and at this point, you would think that he's really drilling that point across in training camp to make sure that Tobias can't just spam takedowns and win the fight that way. Now, Tobias is one of those fighters that kind of uses his strength and just size to bully his opponents to the cage and then down to the ground. And in his first fight in the UFC, proved that you actually need to have some more skills than just being a bully. Lucas Fernando is not going to allow Tobias to back him up to the cage because he's going to be landing some really tough jabs. Lucas Fernando throws some of the best jabs I've seen where he just keeps it really tight and throws them straight down the middle. And people don't realize with that point of impact, that's how he creates so much damage to his opponents and leads to them getting wobbled. And then once they get hurt, Lucas is like a lion. He just pounces and finishes the fight. If Tobias can get out of the second round and get it to the third round, I think he will have a chance to get it down to the ground and look for a finish because he'll need it. He'll be down from the first 2 rounds because Lucas is just going to outpoint him and outstrike him. What I see happening though is I see Lucas Fernando catching him with some of those straight jabs or a low leg kick and then a straight jab behind it, followed by a hook maybe, but something that's going to wobble Tobias. And when he gets wobbled, Lucas is just going to demolish him, push him back to the fence, and finish him. I got Fernando by TKO. Lock it in. Thank you for everyone that's made it to this point in the video. If you don't mind, real quick, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It's going to help me keep making these videos and motivate me to keep winning us some free money. So, with that being in mind, let's get to this week's picks. With the Lock City Parlay, we have Islam Makhachev, Mansour Abdul Malik, and Joel Alvarez for -104. Now, guys, I had a completely different lineup for all my bets this week, but Ocho got pulled from this fight card, and it screwed me hard. So, this is a new parlay. I do apologize that it's not plus money, but it's pretty close to even money. Shooting for the stars has hit 2 out of the last 3 weeks, guys. Make sure you drop at least $5-10 on this. You see the names, it's plus 548. Beers for the boys. Always one of my favorite bets. It's one of those ones after you win, next round's on you because you got some extra cash. We got Islam, McKenzie, Esteban, Mansour, and Lucas for plus 232. And then one of my favorite bets of the night, I really do think that Islam makes Iam Machado Garry tap and the vegan loses. So guys, thank you again for watching the video. Please drop a like on the video if you don't mind. And let's lock it in.